Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 20 in our incredible new tutorial series where you are going to learn artificial intelligence or you're going to die trying. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice refreshing cup of ice cold coffee. That is straight up black coffee poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your support and your encouragement that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping on over there and hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the homework solution to the homework that I assigned in lesson number 20. What we learned in lesson number 20 was how to go in and take that data structure that is coming back from Mediapipe, find the hands, and then determine for whatever hands are found, whether it's a right hand or a left hand. So we altered our Mediapipe class in order to analyze not just where the hands were and the landmarks on the hands, but to determine whether each individual hand is right or left. And so in effect, we learned to parse the handedness of the data. And then I gave you an assignment, and what that assignment was to go out and create a two-player gesture-based version of the classic Pong arcade game. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you my solution to coming up with a gesture-based version of the classic game Pong. Okay? Well, enough of this introductory chit-chat. Let's just jump right in and let's start coding. And so what I will do is I will get out of your way and I will switch over where you can see what I'm doing on my desktop. And what I will need you to do is fire up your most excellent Visual Studio Code. And then we're going to come over here and we are working in our main Python folder. And I'm going to create a new file, which is going to be OpenCV-34.py, and the .py is kind of important, and boom, fresh new Python program, just waiting to be written. Okay, for this particular program, we don't want to start completely from scratch. We want to start with that last thing that we did in lesson 20, which was to create that simple core program that had a class that would parse not just the hand landmarks, but the handedness of the hand. If this doesn't make sense, go back and watch the most excellent lesson 20. So we'll start where we left off there. So I will need you to go to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com, and then I need you to search on using this happy little search box. Come over here and search on something like distinguish between right and left hands in Mediapipe, or just right and left hands would probably get you here. And then down here is the code, and we can click on this little icon. It highlights the code. Right mouse click to copy. Come back over here, and now we're going to paste. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run this code just to make sure that the universe is in proper order and we didn't cause some sort of time-space continuum rip by cutting and pasting. So we will see if this will work. So let's see. Run it. And it opens up. And now let's throw it a hand. Okay, and remember we had the right hands being red and the left hands being blue. Oh, look at that. I have peanut debris in my hand. Busted, yeah, busted. I'm busted. Before I started this recording, I ate myself a bag of peanuts, and now I've got peanut husk on my hands. Okay, busted. All right, so the right hand is red. The dirty peanut left hand is blue. So things seem to work. The universe is in proper order. So now we're going to come in and we are going to start building this Pong game. Now, I did not go back and start with our old Pong game because there are so many things that are changing. I was just saying, oh, it's too confusing to be trying to change right, left, top, bottom, all that sort of stuff. Now, in the original Pong game that was one player, we had the paddle at the top and we just moved it back and forth with our finger this way. But I think that if we're going to have two players, it's kind of hard to do this because your hands are bumping into each other. Since our arms come out of the sides of our body and not the top and bottom of our body, I think playing like this would probably work a little better. So I'm going to have a right hand and I'm going to have a right side of the screen and a left hand and a left side of the screen, right? I should probably explain this. My right hand is going to be identified as left because that's just the way Mediapipe works. It does it backwards, right? But when I look at the screen, my right hand shows up in front of my face on my screen as I'm looking at my screen on the left hand, on the left-hand side of the screen because of just the way a camera works. So what that means is actually, if I just use what Mediapipe uses, I use their right as right and I use their left as left and just go all the way through the lesson with that nomenclature, it really works very well. Just understand that it's actually my left hand. It's actually my right hand. Does that make sense? Hopefully so. If it doesn't, go back and watch last week's lesson. That's the answer to anything, right? That's the answer to anything. Go back and watch last week's lesson. Okay, so this class MP Hands now. What do we know about class MP Hands? We know that it returns not just the landmarks for all the hands that were found, it also returns the type of hand. And this is an array that lists each hand that it found as either a right hand or a left hand. Okay, now we come down here and we are getting ready here. We go ahead and call up that class MP Hands. Well, after we do that, now we've got to start thinking about kind of turning this thing into a game. We got to kind of think about turning this thing into a game. So the first thing we got to think about is paddles. Well, if we're going to have paddles, we got to think in terms of a paddle width. Now this time the paddle is going to be skinny and tall, and so paddle width would be what, about 25 pixels, okay? And now paddle height is going to be the large dimension, so it's going to be paddle height we will make about 125, okay? And so that's going to be kind of a tall and skinny paddle. Now the left paddle and the right paddle the left paddle and the right paddle, they're going to be the same size, so I don't need to have separate parameters for each paddle. And then I kind of like to go ahead and give it a paddle color. And why don't we make the paddle color purple, okay? And purple would be 255 blue, green is 0, and then 255 red should be a most excellent, and that should be an equal. That will be a most excellent paddle color, okay? Now we got our paddles kind of defined. We're also going to need a ball. If we're going to have a ball, we better think in terms of ball radius. And the ball radius, I think, what do you think? 25? That should be pretty good. 25. I should think of a ball color. I think I want the ball color to be blue. So we're going to call that 255, 0, 0, because it is blue, green, red. So the blue channel is full strength and the green and the red channel are turned off. So I got ball radius. Now what I need is I need to get rid of some of this nonsense. Man, I got so much junk popping up here, phones going off, all this kind of stuff. So, okay, again, ball color equal blue. Okay, I got ball color. Now, I need to have a position for the ball. Now that position is going to be changing, but I got to start somewhere so it doesn't crash when I run it. And so let's just start it in the middle of the frame. So X position is going to be equal to width divided by 2. So that would be the middle in the X direction. But what's wrong with that? That might be a not round number, so we better make it an int just so we don't cause problems elsewhere. And you understand that a lot of the commands that we might put xpos and ypos into in OpenCV are expecting ints, and if we send it a float, it'll crash. So let's just right here force it to be an int, and we won't have that problem. Y position is equal to int of what? Of what? Height divided by 2. Now that should put the ball initially in the middle of the screen. Okay, now the ball isn't going to just sit there. Each time through the loop, we're going to change it by an amount in x and change it by an amount in y. And so I think I will call that delta x, the change in x, delta x. And what do you think? Let's just make it, let's make it 3, okay? And then delta y is going to be equal to 3 as well. Does that make sense? Delta x is 3, delta y is 3. Okay, we're going to be putting some text up on the screen. So let's go ahead and set up a font. So I'm going to say font is equal to cv2.font. I kind of like the font Hershey Simplex. Where is font Hershey Simplex? Right there. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, what else do I need to think? Well, I need to think of a font height. And I know that for the scores, you kind of want a big number. So I'm going to make the height 5, which will make a pretty large font. And if it's that big, it ought to be pretty heavy as well. So the font weight, is that right? Font weight, I think that should be 5 as well. Okay. And if we're going to have a font, we better go ahead and have a font color. And I want to make this red because it's the score. So that's going to be 0, 0, 255. So that'll be the score for the left player and right player at the top of the screen. And that is an equal again. Okay. It doesn't count as an error if you correct it before you run it. Pro tip there. Okay, so now I've got the font color. Now I have to think of, I have a right index finger and I have a left index finger. And since I'm playing left and right, what I really care about is the Y position of my finger. And so I'm going to say the Y position of my left finger, the tip, and I'm going to just set that. You got to set it somewhere just to get it going. So I'll set it at 0. Then it'll actually be reading it from the screen. But before it sees a hand, it doesn't know where your hand is. So you just got to give it a number so the program doesn't crash later on. And then right tip will set to 0. Okay. Now we got to keep score. So I'm going to have the score for the left player will start at 0, and then the score for the right player will start at 25. Just kidding. Build a little bias into the game there. I'd always want to be the right player there in that case, but we'll start it at 0 and we will have a fair game. All right. Now, why do I go through that? Because it's a lot easier to think through things clearly where all I'm thinking about is something like position or height or width. I'm not having to worry about the command. And so by setting these parameters up, I can think about them clearly. It's hard to be doing a cvt.putText command and then trying to figure out dimensions or something like that. It's much easier than just to pop in those parameters. And then you can focus on the circle or the rectangle or the put text and not have to be thinking about, now, where is this or what is this? And so I just think this makes coding a whole lot easier. And also it makes your code a whole lot more clear to read for someone who might be looking at it. Okay, so now we're going to come down into the while loop. So we want to read the frame. I agree. I think that is a good thing to do in any case. And then down here, we are going to do the hand data. Okay. But before we do the hand data, we need to go ahead and do a few things. Like we need to go ahead and put the ball. We got to bring the ball into the game. So I'm going to say cv2.circle. Okay. And where do I want to put the circle? The circle's the ball. Okay. Where do I want to put it? I want to put it on the frame. I want to put it on the frame. And then where do I want to put it? Well, I want to put it at X position, comma, Y position. And do you see that's a tuple? That is open parentheses, X pos, comma, Y pos, close parenthesis. So that's a tuple is like a coordinate. In programming, they call it tuples. I kind of look at it as this. I like to think of it as a coordinate, like an XY coordinate. So we've got that. Okay. Now, what I need to do here is got a little thrown off there. Sorry. Okay, now what comes next is the ball radius, which is nice because we've already defined that, and then ball color, and then I want it solid, so I'll put it as a -1. All right. Now, also what we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to put those scores on there on the screen. And so I'm going to have a cv2.put text. And where do I want to put the text? I want to put it on frame. And then what do I want to put? I want to put string of score left. Why string? Because score left is a number and put text wants a string. So I got to take score left and I got to change it into a string, which I've just done. Now, where do I want it? Well, I want it on the left part of the screen. And so I probably need to put it over from the left about 50 pixels just so it doesn't run off the screen. So it would be about 50. And similarly, I probably need to move it down by about 125. And that should put it in a pretty nice position. And then I've got to tell it the font, which I've already defined. And then I got to tell it the font height, which I've already defined. And then I got to tell it the font color, which I've already defined, and then the font weight. Do you see how easy it is? Like now I'm thinking about the put text and all I had to really think about, but of course you got to kind of put a close here on that. Okay, I sort of missed that. I hope you guys caught it. And let's see, I don't seem to be balanced now. I got an extra one there. Okay, that closes the put text. That closes a string. Okay, I think my parentheses are right. All right. So you see how easy it is when you define your parameters. Then when you do your command, the only thing I had to really think about is where do I want it to be on the frame. Okay, I guess I could have even up there put like a score left position or something, but you can at some point take it too far. Let's just run it to see if this runs. Make sure we haven't introduced an error. Here we go. Bam. Okay, nothing particularly exciting happening, but I've got the score up in the left and I've got the ball on the field. The ball is on the field. Now, if I'm going to have a score left, what else am I going to need? I'm going to need a score right. I think I'm just going to copy and paste score left. We still want it on frame, only this time instead of score left, it is score right. And then the other thing is instead of at 50, I want it well over there. Like I could put it all the way to the right, would be at width, but then it would be off the right side of the screen. And so I better subtract about 150 to bring it back where it's fully on the frame. It doesn't have half of it off the frame. Let's go ahead and check that before we move on, make sure it looks good. Okay, you see those two scores 0, 0. That kind of makes sense. You see the game is coming. It's coming along, man. It's coming along. Let's have some coffee. That is delicious, refreshing. It's a very robust, dark French roast. Wow, it is good. Okay, so we got the text done. And then we're going to go in, and the next thing we're going to do. So we have the ball, and we have the two scores on there. All right, so now we got to come down here, and we have for hand in hand type. We got a bunch of nonsense here. This is what is putting the circles on the hands. Okay, so you see those circles. Now I don't really want those circles on there anymore, but rather than erase it, I'm just going to comment them out. Okay, so I'm going to say toggle line comment. And that way, like if there was something in here that was like a parameter or something that was, it might help me if I could go back and look at that. So I just don't want to take that out for no reason. I don't want to take that out for no reason, but this one should have been included. This one should have also been commented out as such. as such. Okay, so now I would just show the frame without putting the circles on there. Okay, but I do want to step through the hands. So here I go out and I get all of the hand data, the landmarks for all of the hands, and then I get the type, the handedness, the left or the right for all of the hands with this. So for a given hand, I'm going to have the hand data, the landmarks, and then I'm going to have whether the hand is a right hand or a left hand. Okay, then I'm going to step through my hand data, which I got back from find hands, and my hands type, which I got my hands data and my hands type, which I got back from find hands dot marks, which is what comes up here and calls the marks method. Okay, so now inside of this for loop, I don't want to draw circles, but I do want to have the for loop because I do want to step through my hands because I need to work on the left hand and I need to work on the right hand. And so now what do? Well, I need to kind of figure out what hand I'm dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to say if hand type is equal to left, if it's a left hand, what do I want? If it's a left hand, I want the position of the tip of my finger. And so I would call that Y left tip. And that is going to be hand, which is going to be those landmarks that I went out and got the whole group of landmarks for the hand singular, 21 landmarks. Well, which landmark do I want? Well, we can come back over here to our handy dandy little hand, and the tip of the index finger is index number 8. It is index number 8, and so I see that I want, out of the hand array of landmarks, I want landmark 8. Okay, now remember that handmark 8 is going to be a tuple of an X and a Y. Okay, of an X comma Y. What is it that I want? Which one? Well, I'm interested in the what? The Y position. The first one is X, which would be position 0. The next one, Y, is position 1. Okay, so that should make sense. So this should give me the Y coordinate of the tip of my left hand. Actually right hand. Okay, but I'll quit belaboring that point. Then also if hand type is equal to right, then who's your friend? Mr. Colon. And then Y right tip is going to be equal to hand. Y right tip is going to be equal to hand of 8. Hand of hand of 8, and then position 1, which will be the Y value, just like before that, right? So now I should have the Y position of the tip of my index finger of my left hand and the tip of the index finger of my right hand. So I've got kind of the data that will allow me to animate those two rectangles when we make them. And so that's really what we want here. We want to have a position associated with the right tip index and a position associated with the left tip index and the Y position of those. So I don't have to do anything else in these ifs, nor do I have to do anything else in the hand. So we are inside of that for loop. So now we are ready to put some rectangles on there. We are ready to put some rectangles on there, and this is where we will have to think a little bit. But now let's go ahead and let's do that left paddle. Okay, let's do the left paddle. So we're going to CV2. The paddle is going to be a rectangle. CV2 rectangle. Where do I want to put it? I want to put it on frame. And now where do I want the upper left corner? Well, the X value on upper left is going to be the edge of the frame, which would be the X value of 0. And then where is the Y value going to be? Well, it is going to be where my Y left tip, that is the Y position of my left hand, but that paddle, that Y position of my left hand is going to be the center of the paddle. And so the top left is going to be the center minus half the paddle height. So it's going to be Y left tip minus paddle height divided by 2. Okay, so the center is going to be, the center of the paddle is going to be around my left index. So my left index is going to define the center of the paddle, and then the upper left of the paddle would be that value minus half the width of the paddle. Now this is expecting an int, and paddle height divided by 2 might not be an int, it might be a floating number, so we better force this to be an int so that this won't crash. Now this is where you get into like really hard to debug things, because if it happened to just luckily be an int most time, you would be sitting along playing and then all of a sudden randomly it would stop working and crash. And it would crash when Y left tip minus paddle height divided by 2 didn't happen to luck out and be an int. And so this can cause very difficult problems that are very difficult to debug. So I like to force things where I can, where there's no way that this could end up a floating point number. All right, so that is the upper left position of the paddle. Now, where is the lower right position? Well, the lower right position would be, I'm no longer all the way over. The lower right would come out by how much? Paddle width. Okay, and then similarly, the second position would be int of Y left tip, but this time we're coming down, so I need to add paddle height divided by 2. Okay, so that's kind of got, okay, now that parenthesis, all right, I want to make sure you see it. That parenthesis ends the int. This parenthesis ends the tuple, and then this ends the command. So before that one, I want to come in, and now I've just got to tell it the color, which would be paddle color. Are you guys able to see this, or is it? I'm sorry. Let's see if I can bring this up somehow. There. I hope I haven't blocked you from much of this. Okay, so I got to put there the paddle color, and then what else do I need? I need the line thickness, which I'm going to put as a -1, like that. Let's run this, and the ball's not going to be animated, but I think that the left rectangle might be animated. Now remember, it's going to actually be left on your screen even though it's my right hand. Okay, so here we go. Let's see if this animates. What? Line 72? What is this nonsense? Somehow my parentheses aren't right here. So this is an open and it's closed. Oh, I see. You see, I closed the int, but I didn't close the tuple. All right. So I was missing a parenthesis there. Good news is that it's running, but I haven't thrown it a hand yet. Now I'll throw it a hand. Shazam. Look at that. Huh? Who's your huckleberry? I've got that animated, okay, which should I think be on the left of your screen there. Okay, so let's quit that. That works so well. Don't you know that I am just itching to copy and paste that for the one on the right? okay? And let's go through carefully. It's still CV2.rectangle. It still goes on frame. But now, instead of being at the left of the frame, we want it at the right of the frame, which means we would go all the way over by width, but then we need to come back by how much? Width is all the way to the right of the screen, but the upper left of that paddle would not be at width. It would be at width minus what? Paddle width. And so now that is the X value of the upper left corner of the paddle. Okay, now just the thing is, instead of, now we're looking at our other hand, and so we wouldn't want Y left tip, we would want Y right tip, and paddle height is still paddle height divided by 2. Now on this one, the next, the bottom right, the X value of the bottom right of the right panel of the right paddle is going to be all the way over to what? The width of the frame. All the way over to the width of the frame. And then here again, instead of the left tip, we are going to do the right tip. And then I think those things should be the same. Right. Guys, if this doesn't make perfect sense, draw a picture and label it. Like label the upper left and the lower right of the left paddle, and then label the upper left and the lower right of the right paddle. All right, let's see if this thing is live. Okay, let's throw it a hand. Look at that. Let's throw it another hand. Look at that. Who's your huckleberry? Look at that. Okay, we got both of those things animated. And I will say that I am a little confused about which one of my hands is which, but you've got to kind of just watch them a second and then you begin to get oriented. Okay, also try to give it a nice hand and like look at this hand. Okay, if I try to bring down to the corner, you see, what's the problem? It's not recognizing the whole hand, and so Mediapipe kind of breaks. So you got to kind of give it a hand, and then I like to kind of curl it to get it down in that corner. Just a little pro game tip. I shouldn't have told you that in case we were ever in a restaurant and this game became famous and we played each other for money. I would have a little tip that you wouldn't have. Maybe I would win something, okay? But I'll go ahead. I'll give you my pro tips here on this, okay? So that's good. So we've animated the paddles, but what do we need to do now? We got to kind of bring the ball into it. We got to kind of get the game going, right? We got to get the game going. That is so good. All right. So let's see where I am here. Let's see where I am. All right. I think I can leave the for loop now. I think I can leave the for loop because I've got the for loop was to get me sort of my finger position so that I could position the paddle. Okay, and then in fact I've already left the for loop because I have the positions, and outside of that for loop I have put those two game pieces in, and those two game pieces are indeed animated. Okay, now I've got to start thinking about the ball. Okay, I've got to think about the balls hitting the walls. Okay, and what I've got to think about is I don't want to think about the position of the ball, which is the center, because then as I'm trying to put in all these if statements, it becomes mind-bogglingly complex. So I'm going to set up parameters. What do I care about when the top edge of the ball hits the top wall? When the bottom edge of the ball hits the bottom wall. So I need to kind of define those things so when I need to use them, I don't have to do a lot of thinking. I can save my old CPU for other things for the specific command. So let's go ahead and define these. So the top ball edge is going to be equal to what? Well, it's the top and the bottom, so we're talking about Y position. And then if it's the top, remember, as you go up on the frame, the number gets smaller, right? As you go up on the frame, like the upper left of your frame is 0, 0. So as you come down, Y gets bigger. As you go up, Y gets smaller. So top edge of the ball is Y position minus ball radius. And then if that's top edge of the ball, we need to do a bottom edge of the ball, and that is going to be equal to y position plus ball radius. Okay, and so that just gives me the top and the bottom of the ball, and as it moves, x position or y position changes. As it moves, y position changes, but that will make always the top ball edge and bottom edge ball be dynamically correct. All right. Now I also have to think of left ball edge, and that's going to be equal to not y position but x position and minus ball radius, and then what? Right ball edge, and that is going to be equal to x position plus ball radius. So we've got some parameters defined for our ball that are going to make the if statements a whole lot easier. All right, now I've got to put my bounces in, and there's 4 things that I have to think about when the top edge of the ball hits the top wall, when the bottom edge of the ball hits the bottom wall, when the left edge of the ball hits the left wall, or when the right edge of the ball hits the right wall. Those are the 4 if statements I got to think about. What are the easy ones? The top and the bottom, because those always bounce because you don't have any game pieces up there. Okay, you don't have any game pieces up there. So let's do the easy ones first. If top ball edge is what? If that is less than or equal to what? 0, because the y value of the top of the frame is 0. So the y value of the top is 0. So if the top ball edge is less than or equal to 0, that means you are leaving the frame. Okay, but you don't want to leave the frame. Instead, you want to bounce off. So if the top ball edge is less than or equal to 0, then what do you want to do? Well, in that case, you want to change what? You want to change y. Okay, so you were going up, delta y was positive, you want to make delta y negative. So delta y equals delta y times -1. So if it's negative, it becomes positive. If it's positive, it becomes negative. That is a bounce. That was easy. Also, if the bottom ball edge is greater than or equal to, if it's greater than or equal to what? Height. And remember, height is the height of your frame in pixels. Okay? And in that case, also delta y equals delta y times -1. All right. Stop that nonsense. Okay. And why does it not like this? Bottom ball edge. Did I misspell it up here? Bottom edge ball. I switched my naming convention. Bottom ball edge, like that. And then that makes this happy down here. Okay, so this might actually bounce. Let's see. It'll bounce off the top or it'll bounce off the bottom if we're lucky enough to have it go there. Let's just sort of see if we're going to see a bounce here. Maybe I got nothing. I got nothing. It's dead. It's dead. Okay, but the reason I think it's dead is because what I never did is down here, I never actually put the change onto the ball. And so what I need to say is x position equal x position plus delta x, and then y position equal y position plus delta x. Just kidding. Y position is Y position plus delta Y, like that. Now it should come alive. It's alive. Boom, we got to bounce now over here. It won't work, right? It's just jailbreaks over on the right because we don't have our left and right conditions on, but the top and bottom work. Okay, now this is, let's do the left wall. Okay, the left wall bounce. Well, I'm not interested in the ball hitting the left wall. I'm interested in the ball hitting the edge of the paddle. Okay, so I'm not looking for the ball to hit the wall. I'm looking when is the ball at the same X position as the edge of the paddle. Okay, because you bounce off the paddle, you don't bounce off of the wall. Okay, so now let's do the left edge. So what I'm going to say is if left ball edge is what? If left ball edge is less than or equal to not 0, but what? Paddle width. That means that the ball, like here's my paddle, the ball has come up to the paddle. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. If the left edge of the ball is less than or equal to the paddle width, now, if the paddle, here's my paddle. If the paddle is up here and you hit the paddle, then you bounce. But if the paddle is up here and you get here and there's no paddle, there's nothing to bounce off of, then that's got to be a loss of point, right? That's got to be you lost, that player lost because he didn't have his paddle lined up with the ball. So I got to do a second check. If what? If the Y position, okay, I want the Y position of the ball. The Y position of the ball, it needs to be above the bottom of the paddle and it needs to be below the top of the panel. Both of those, it's got to be between here and here. If it's up here, it goes away. If it's down here, it goes away. So it needs to be greater than the bottom edge of the paddle and less than the top edge of the paddle. So how are we going to take that most excellent word description, Man, I've got so many notifications going on here. I have so many notifications. So if Y position, okay, if the Y position, that's the center of the ball, if the center of the ball is what? If it is greater than or equal to the top of the paddle, which is what? That would be the position of my finger, Y, left, tip, and then what? Minus, because we're going up, minus paddle height divided by 2, which has to be a what? We always want to be safe and make that an int. Okay. So now we need it to be, it needs to be great. Oh, this is not good. That is not good. That would be if Y tip left so I'm here, and then I need to be greater than, okay, yeah, that's greater than the bottom. That makes sense because minus goes down, that's greater than the bottom. Okay, and then, and Y position needs to be below or less than or equal to the top of the paddle, which would be Y left tip, and then that would be plus paddle height divided by 2, and then I make that an int. And then are you guys seeing that? Yeah, I think you can see that. Divided by 2. Okay. In that case, it's both in X, it's even with the paddle in X, and then it's below the top of the paddle and above the bottom of the paddle, when all of those things, when all that magic happens, what do we get? We get a bounce. Okay, and in this case, it bounces in X. It is bouncing in X. So delta X is equal to delta X times -1, like that. Does that look good? All right. Now, if it doesn't meet up just perfectly to get the perfect bounce, then what do we need to do? The ball is lost. We got to start over in the center because that ball was lost. And how do we do that? Well, we reset X position. We're going to put it in the center. Int of width divided by 2. That's kind of like a dead, that's sort of like a dead game at that point. Y position is equal to int of height divided by 2, like that. All right, so it's going to put the ball and it's going to start going again. Well, what else is going to happen? That's going to be a score for the other guy because Mr. Left lost the ball. Mr. Right gets a point. So we're going to say score right equal score right plus 1, like that. Okay. Yep, I'm going to live dangerously, and the right bounce and the right paddle should be almost the same thing. So I'm going to copy all the way up to that if statement, and then I'm going to come here, and then that did not go right. This one needs to come back one. Okay, so I have if left ball edge, well, this would be not left ball edge, but right ball edge. And what I'm interested in here, when right ball edge, my right ball edge comes to what? The edge of the paddle, which is going to be the width of the frame minus the paddle width. So that is going to be, if it's less than or equal to the width of the frame minus the paddle width. And that will be this condition here happening. This is the paddle, this condition here. All right. Now, if Y position, that's still going to be Y position, is less than or equal to, this isn't the Y left tip anymore. This is on the right, so it's going to be the Y right tip, and then Y right tip, and then still it's going to be delta X, and then still it's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be this, but instead of score right getting a point, in this case it's going to be score left getting the point. Okay, could it be that easy? I don't think so. I don't think it can be that easy. Okay. Let's see. Get some go juice here. What? What? Oh. Oh. It's little y POS. I hope you guys caught that. A little y POS. All right, let's see what happens. That probably underlined it, and I probably just didn't see it. What? I thought I fixed that. Oh, there's other ones here. The error continues to propagate. The error continues to propagate. Y POS. Let's change all those. Oh man, look at it. Something's going crazy there. Player one's like, I want to be player one. What on earth caused that to happen? Okay, that is if I think this is every single time what was happening. That was score left was incrementing every single time through the loop And how could it possibly do that? So that was what? That was the left one that was incrementing. So like every single time. Let me see, somehow I'm getting into this if statement when I shouldn't. When right ball edge is greater than equal to, it should have been greater than or equal to, right? Because it's greater than or equal to on this side. All right, that one scared me a little bit. Although it was fun being player one while you could there. Okay. Come on, come on. Hey, we got a bounce. Okay. I'm not comfortable with my hands here, so let's see. I got to bring, I'm confused which hand is controlling which paddle. Okay. Are you guys seeing the magic happen here? Are you watching the magic? Is the magic happening for you? Okay, I'm going to get one more here just because, I'm having fun at this point. I'm getting into it. But I really don't know if I'm rooting for my right hand or my left hand here. Okay, we're going to let the left hand. He's going to bite the bullet. But he popped up there. How did you like that? It's like the game is playing itself. I think for some reason it's randomly thinking it's seeing something. Okay, so there, the right got a point. And then here he lost again, right got another point. And he bounced. And this time, let's see if left gets a point, because we really want to make sure that we're completely verifying the game. So in this time, left should get a point. Yeah, okay, so the score seems to be being kept correctly. So that is pretty cool. Now, the only thing here is you need to somehow have a way for the game to end. And so like, when does the game end? You guys could come up with your own scenario, but I think I'm going to do, after I do this move window, I'm going to check and see if I want to end the game. And what I could do is, I'll do it before I show it. I can end it there. If score left plus score right is greater than or equal to 10. And so when you've had a total of 10, a score of the sum of both players is 10, then you'll end the game. And the way you would end the game is just break out of here. Now, if you wanted to be fancy, you would put something like a game over here, or you would do something where you would kind of leave more elegantly. But here we're just going to stop. We're just going to stop running. And again, it's just, I don't want these videos to be too long. And because I don't want them to be too long, I don't just keep going. But I hope you guys will take it like a lot further than I have taken it. And what I hope is, boom, what I hope is that some of you guys will just show some incredible stuff here. Because I've given you the programming tools. I missed that one. I've given you the programming tools to be successful. But now what you need to do is you need to go away and bring them all together and add some creativity and make like a really good game. There we go. I think, and you see, I could sit by someone and I could play this game sitting by someone, and that would be easier. Okay, we're just going to sit and chat for a minute here and just make sure that the thing does leave when it gets to 10. So we've got 1. Now this should be point to the right. Yeah, point went to the right one. This will be, darn it, it's like the thing wants to play without my hand even being in there. All right, so what I would hope you guys would do is, again, you might think about, as the sum of the two scores gets higher, you might think about making the game harder. You could make the game harder by having the ball move faster, or you could make the game harder by making the paddle smaller. Maybe you could have, under certain circumstances, one guy's paddle gets bigger and the other guy's paddle gets smaller. Like, I don't know, maybe you could say that if you are hitting exactly in the middle, you're like if I can bounce exactly in the middle like that one was, then I make my opponent's paddle get smaller. Like something that player 1 could do could make player 2's paddle get smaller. And so those would be some interesting things. Okay, we're up to 7. This will be 8. And we should see this thing. It's amazing how many times that it actually hits. But again, it's just seeing phantom hands, and it's interpreting something in the picture as a hand. Okay, now that's 9. Now this time it's going to bounce, of course. All right, and now this time I'm pretty sure it should come to an end. It should come to an end as the paddle misses, then the game should end. Okay, and again, it'd be cool to put something in there like a game over. All right, guys, I hope you're having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. I think I've given you a tool set, and I know some of you guys are really creative. I think I've given you a tool set where you can do some pretty cool gesture-based things. What I'm really wanting to do is both my Python 3D graphics class and this class, I would like to move both of those to then be interfacing with the Arduino. And I just think it would be really neat to have my gestures controlling something in the outside world through the Arduino, or things that are happening in the outside world affecting my animation. And so I'm trying to think through the lessons because I don't want to give you the equipment set to order. And again, you know, I'm looking at small amounts of money. I try to make it as small as possible, but some equipment that you could order where we could start interfacing this whole thing to hardware. I'm very sensitive that people are on a limited budget. So I'm going to try to think, how can I get maximum wow factor for minimum investment in hardware? Now, hopefully some of you guys already have the Arduino, and hopefully some of you guys already have, a lot of you guys hopefully have this Elegoo Super Starter Kit. What I'll try to do is do a lot of the stuff based on components that are already in the Elegoo Super Starter Kit. And then what I will also do is I'll also probably come up with a couple of nice servos and pan tilt brackets so that we could be moving something on a pan tilt bracket based on hand gestures or based on things like that. Okay, guys, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Hey, that'd be a cool project. See if you could automatically give me a thumbs up on my video by a gesture-based thing. That probably would be doable, but it'd probably be a little bit tough to do that. But anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this. Give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you ring that bell and share this with other people, because we need more people coding and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter, TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.